We took shelter in our basement a couple weeks ago for the tornado warnings. Now there's flood warnings. Throughout Ohio, there's power outages and closed roads, rivers are overflowing, and farm fields are flooded. So what does this mean for us?
Because we're more than farmers. We have some water leaking into our basement, but it's not too bad. This carpet is all wet. We just need to take it outside so it can dry off. I made sure I got everything up off the ground that needed to be before it started getting water in here, so nothing got ruined or anything. We'll just definitely be running the dehumidifier and some fans, and this will be okay down here. There's a whole lot more water outside. You may have seen in our last video, thankfully we got a round of tilling done before we got all of this flooding. But now with all the water going on outside, definitely have things at a halt in the garden right now.
It's stopped raining outside now, and so we're gonna go outside and try to get some stuff done today. But yesterday it was raining really hard. We knew we weren't gonna get anything done, and so we ended up driving to Holmes County, Ohio to pick up our seed order at Berlin Seeds.
It was the perfect excuse to get away for a day, get something done that needed to be done, and have some fun as a family. There was some high water along the way, but nothing too major. Our first stop was Berlin Seeds. They're our favorite seed and gardening supply company. We've ordered from them for years, but we were never actually at their store. They've got walls of seeds, garden tools, fertilizers, canning supplies, stainless steel baking pans. Let's just say it was the perfect place for a homesteader to go on a rainy day. We went to a small cafe to eat some sandwiches for lunch, stopped at a couple shops, and went to Heine's Cheese. They didn't have as many cheese samples as they used to, so that was a bummer. But all in all, it was a really fun day.
The red Pontiac potatoes in my root cellar are starting to get wrinkly. They're not lasting as long as the Yukon Gold potatoes are lasting. These are sprouting again, and I just decided it's time to get them used up. I think I'm gonna offer a crate to my mom, see if she wants some. And I'm also kind of in shifts. I've been just washing these, throwing them into roasting pans, baking them, and then putting them into freezer bags. And I'll just be using them in that awkward time in between, like spring when the root cellar is too warm to store things anymore. And then, you know, the time until our potatoes are ready again, like late summer. These will definitely come in handy. They won't go to waste, but they're just not storing well enough in our root cellar anymore. But they've lasted 7 to 8 months, and so I'm very pleased. You can see here, they're completely fine on the inside. There's really nothing wrong with these potatoes. They're just starting to get a little bit wrinkly. One of the biggest challenges with wrinkly potatoes is that they can be super hard to peel. So I actually just don't peel them. I just bake them first. And after they're baked, they kind of like rehydrate a little bit, and the skins just peel off easily. I've had a bunch of people ask me why I don't can my potatoes. Honestly, I mean, the answer is just I'm too lazy to can my potatoes. I'm not a lazy person, but I don't have the time to can potatoes. I would be canning potatoes for hours and hours and hours because I have like, I don't know, probably at least 7 more crates of potatoes like this down in the basement. We have a lot of outside work to do today, but before I can go out, I really wanted to get some stuff done in here. I have these potatoes to wash and bake, and then I also have some plants that need to be watered. I've had people tell me that they just freeze their potatoes raw, but it just goes against all of my instincts, and I just don't feel like taking the chance. My mom told me that she had a friend who made hash browns out of like raw potatoes, and she ended up throwing them away because they were just really watery and yucky. So I am not going to take the chance on doing that. I'm going to bake them and put them into gallon freezer bags and just pop them in my freezer. I might take some of these and use my chopper and like dice them into squares so that I can just like pull out a bag and dump them straight into my frying pan for like kind of like a hash brown type of dish in the mornings for breakfast. But it just depends how my day goes. If I'm kind of busy today, I'll probably just throw them into bags like this. I'm adding water in the bottom, just like, I don't know, 1/2 inch of water, just to help them like rehydrate a little bit because they are a little bit wrinkly. And when they come out of the oven, you won't even notice that they were wrinkly before. Just gonna cover them with tin foil, and it creates a nice steam down there. And yes, I'm the weird lady who saves her tin foil. If you don't wanna use tin foil, you can always just use like a roasting pan with a lid or something. I don't mind using a little bit of tin foil here and there. It's not something I use all the time. My seedlings are getting massive. Unfortunately, I think they're too big and I'm gonna have to repot them before I can get them planted outside. I just set these in my bathtub for about 15 minutes to bottom water. I am just giving my onions a little haircut. You never wanna cut them down more than half, but I just like to keep them trimmed so that they don't just flop over. I'm normally all about efficiency when it comes to my house, but plants are my weakness. I enjoy them, they make me happy, they clean the air, and so this is something that I choose to spend my time doing, watering my plants. So it just started to hail, but we're out here wanting to get some work done. Cody's going on vacation next week and I'm just determined to get work done so that I don't have it like hanging over my head while he's gone. And I'm going to try to get these fruit trees pruned tonight. We'll see. It's not supposed to like pour rain, but the hail is kind of taking me off guard. But we're gonna see if we can do this. I am not an expert with pruning at all. Honestly, last year, Cody was going to prune the trees and we're both like very much still learning. And he would like stand here and study the tree and study the tree. He's a perfectionist. And finally I was like, just give me the pruners. And I just did it. So it's not like I am a professional, so I'm not gonna give a bunch of tips. It's kind of like an art, like you kind of start to see branches that need to come off. It's hard to explain. But basically I'm just like cleaning out the middle and trying to make sure that the tree can breathe, make so that branches aren't crossing. This here is a pear tree. We have a few more pear trees and also some apple trees and a cherry tree. They all get pruned a little bit differently.
Cowboy's like over there trying to get the hail in their mouth. They're getting bigger. We've got this little glass room on the side of our garden shed right here that we use for a brooder for our chicks. We're getting meat chicks in just a couple weeks, and so this thing needs to get like cleaned out and all ready to go so that we're not trying to scramble around once they come. This here is 5 foot by 10 foot and it works perfect to raise the brooders because I use this to divide it in half when they're just baby chicks. And once they get a little bigger, I open it up that they can have the whole thing. I need to make sure that these bulbs are still good. I don't actually have electric out here, so I'm gonna have to run an extension cord out here, and I don't want to leave that out here for a couple weeks. So I'm gonna run it out here real quick just to test the bulbs, but then we'll wait to actually leave it out here till the chicks are actually here. This straw here would really barely have to be replaced. Everything's all dried and whatnot, and I could almost just add a layer on top, but it's already high enough that if I go any higher, it's gonna be getting into these sliding doors. So I think we'll have to get this out of here and put a new layer down. I don't actually even have any straw here right now, so I'll probably use hay and layer that. And then for the side where the chicks will be when they first get here, when they're really small, I'll probably get a bag of shavings or some sawdust or something and just put a layer of that so it's easier for them to run around when they're tiny. Got a lot of water puddling down by this compost pile down here. This is at the bottom of a hill. We've actually got some guttering from the house that drains all the way down here. But really, from this flooding stuff that's going on, this is about the worst of it. There's a little bit of water in the basement, but just really thankful that it's not any worse than that. And then we had those tornadoes just a couple weeks ago. They went about 45 minutes north of here, and we just really didn't get anything. And I'm just really thankful for that. This water stuff, that's pretty normal for Ohio in the spring. It's not usually flooding, but we do get a lot of rain in Ohio in the spring. This right here used to actually be our only trail going back to the back field, but one year this got so flooded, the only way I could get back there was wearing waders and carrying buckets of feed and water back there for my chicken. County was doing some road work out here and they had dirt that they needed to get rid of, and I asked them if they wanted to dump some here, and they did. A couple loads. I put a culvert in from this swamp side over to this side and made another trail going back here. So now even when it floods like it is now, I can still get back there without needing to get too wet. It's just something we've learned to deal with. That's a lot of the reason that we built the raised beds that we have, so that we have some garden space that drains a lot faster, and Michelle is going to talk to you guys about that after a little while too. This will work as a really good cover, but I do definitely want to use shavings or something for when they're really little baby chicks, because this is like all rough and I feel like they can kind of get stuck and tangled in it. Once they're bigger, it'll be totally fine. These things definitely need to be cleaned off. I'm gonna bring the air compressor out here and blow all this stuff off real good. All right, let's see if they work. That one works. Both of them are working. That's good. They're nice and toasty. But I don't think I have any extra of these, so I'll probably pick up another pack of them when I go and get the shavings for this. I actually first built this brooder as like a little greenhouse. Never really worked very good for starting seeds enough. It's just not enough of a controlled environment for it. So I started using it as a chick brooder and it works really well. I will say though that I used to have just clear plastic on the roof, and that would have been good for a greenhouse, but for the chicks, I guess it was just like too much intense direct sunlight, and they got sick a lot easier. We had some real problems, and so I decided to try putting a roof on there, and after that, a lot of those problems weren't happening anymore. And so with the sunlight coming in from the sides, it lets light in here, it gets warm in here, and that works really, really well. All right, that's good enough for that. I do want to wash the windows yet. They're just dirty and nasty. And I need to make sure that I've got the right feeder and water put in here. I'm pretty sure I've got what I need, but I'll just bring it out here so that it's ready to go. Here's a good water thing. And where is the feeder? There it is, all the way down there. I really like these metal feeders. I just think they're really sturdy and they work well. And these drinkers are good too. I will say though, the ones they make now have like the thing on top where you can hang them up, and that would be better, but I've had these for a long time and they still work, so I just still use them. Ah! Forgot to hook that up. So are you done with pruning?
Yeah.
Cool. You want to help me clean these windows?
Sure.
Okay, if you want, I'm gonna start spraying off the outside. You could go in and get like soap and water or whatever to clean off the inside. Chapin, I guess is how you say the brand, sent me this, what do you call it? Sent me this nozzle, and it's pretty sweet. It has different functions and it like is super sturdy. I think we'll really like this thing. That looks a lot better. Now there's just one more thing to do. And we were gonna go work on a couple other things, but we are both just wet and cold and miserable, so we're gonna wait until tomorrow.
I'm going to go inside and eat roast beef and take a hot bath. It is miserable out here. I'm all wet and cold because I was pruning fruit trees in the hail and rain.
It's actually been a couple days. I was sick yesterday, still not feeling good today. But there's a couple things that we really need to get done, so we're back at it.
There's another job that I really want to get done, and I have some things to say about it, but first, I really want to get these grapevines weeded and then mulched. I just really like to get ahead of the weeds. This weed fabric worked beautifully last year. I'm gonna leave it down. I pinned it down really well, used a very heavy duty fabric, but all the leaves blew off, or most of the leaves blew off over the winter. So I want to get this weeded before it gets warm and the weeds really take over, and throw a really thick pile of leaves on here, and they should be good for the entire season. I was a little bit worried about using weed cloth in this area because I had heard a lot of people saying that weeds just pop right up through it, but I actually am very pleased with how well it did. The only thing that really popped up through it was a dandelion here and there, and then this grass that kind of started coming in from the edges. That did pop up in some places, but like This section in here is completely weed free and I haven't weeded it at all. So overall, I think it's a really great place to start with stuff like this when things are getting established, and I'm glad I did it. This is our massive leaf pile that we got a lawn service to drop off here. They're already shredded. They've been sitting here all winter and there's already like earthworms and stuff in them. So this is like so awesome. So grateful for leaves. By far my best mulching medium ever, I guess you could say. These leaves are wet and matted, which is actually how I like them. That way they don't fly away. If they're really dry, I usually go over them with a garden hose when I'm trying to mulch, just so that they don't fly away. That's my favorite thing about using shredded leaves as mulch, is that they mat down and weeds just really aren't as likely to come up through them. They also really help my soil to be nice and loose. I used to use paper and straw, never going back. One thing to remember when you're mulching with leaves is that they will really settle and they'll shrink. So you want to put them on extra thick. If you don't, you'll have to go back and redo.
I'm just noticing how green the pasture is out there, and that one section is actually pretty tall, so I think I'm gonna go let Maddie out to get some green grass. She's been eating away at what's in this paddock here as it's growing, but she hasn't gotten to get any real good fresh grass yet. There you go. Holly was born in the winter, so she's never actually been out on the pasture. Let's see what she does out there.
Holly didn't follow her mama over there, and since there had been a shocking wire gate there before, she didn't want to go through. I sat there and waited for a while until she finally went through.
There you go. There is just nothing more beautiful than cows out on green pasture. This part of our pasture is pretty wet, so I do have to be careful with how long I leave her in here. Plus, this grass probably won't keep growing fast enough to leave her out here for too long, but she can at least get a taste.
So as we've been saying, here in Ohio, it's always wet in the spring, which is like honestly one of our biggest issues with gardening, is like trying to plant everything in the spring so that we can get things planted and tilled and so that the soil is ready on time. And so we made these raised beds to kind of combat that problem, and it's helped so much. Over here you can see this soil right here is totally plantable. You could easily plant seedlings into this. And like, it's literally flooded around here. These beds drain so well. Raised beds are one of the #1 things that if people tell me that they're a beginner and they want to know how to start or where to start, I'm always just like, get yourself one raised bed, fill it with really nice soil, and that will make so that you're off to a really good start. My raised beds got super weedy over the winter. They have lots of chickweed, and then also it's called purple dead nettle. And around here, like the fields are just purple right now. It's actually really pretty. You drive down the road and everything's just purple. But purple dead nettle is like this very winter hardy plant. The cold doesn't kill it. It actually makes it thrive. It can be really hard to get rid of because its roots are like just like a really fine mesh, and so when you pull them up, they take a lot of topsoil with them. So I just want to like turn this soil over and start the decomposing process so that I don't have to throw out all of my topsoil when planting time comes. And if you'd like to see how we built these raised beds, you can click on this video right here to watch it next.